The potential for cognitive evolution does not cease at the age of 60, yet the biological machinery supporting the brain becomes increasingly sensitive to metabolic inputs. A prevailing misconception in the wellness landscape suggests that all produce contributes equally to longevity, leading many to inadvertently accelerate neural inflammation through dietary choices that seem virtuous on the surface. Andrew Huberman posits that the key to preserving memory and executive function lies not in blind consumption, but in understanding the neurobiological impact of glycemic regulation and specific nutrient profiles. By distinguishing between compounds that spike insulin to detrimental levels and those that fortify the blood-brain barrier, an individual can actively steer their cognitive trajectory toward clarity and resilience. This exploration provides a mechanistic framework for selecting nutritional tools that support daily vitality and safeguard the aging brain against decline. The glycemic assault on neural tissue, the consumption of fruits with a high glycemic index, triggers a cascade of metabolic events that can be particularly taxing for the aging brain, primarily due to the way the body processes large, rapid influxes of glucose. When an individual overindulges in fruits like very ripe bananas, grapes, or mangoes, the blood sugar spikes dramatically, forcing the pancreas to release a surge of insulin to shuttle that energy into cells. Huberman notes that over time, repeated exposure to these sharp peaks and subsequent crashes can reduce the brain's sensitivity to insulin, a condition often referred to in neurobiological circles as type 3 diabetes. This insulin resistance impairs the ability of neurons to uptake glucose efficiently, starving them of the fuel necessary for critical functions like memory consolidation and synaptic maintenance. The inflammatory response generated by chronic hyperglycemia further compromises the blood-brain barrier, allowing potential toxins to enter the delicate neural environment and accelerate cognitive decline. From a structural perspective, the hippocampus, the area of the brain responsible for forming new memories, is exceptionally vulnerable to these fluctuations in blood glucose and insulin. High sugar intake from seemingly healthy sources can shrink this vital region, leading to the precise memory lapses that many people mistakenly attribute solely to the passage of time. The metabolic cost of processing a large bowl of sugary grapes or a smoothie loaded with tropical fruits often outweighs the vitamin content they provide, especially when muscle mass is not being utilized to soak up the excess glucose. The brain requires a steady, regulated supply of fuel rather than a volatile energy roller coaster provided by high-sugar fruits. This volatility disrupts the production of neurotransmitters and can lead to brain fog, lethargy, and a reduced capacity for focus in the hours following consumption. A common scenario illustrates this metabolic mismatch when a person creates a large fruit salad for breakfast, believing they are starting the day with high vitality. They might include bananas, pineapple, and grapes, consuming nearly 60 grams of sugar in one sitting without any accompanying fiber or protein to blunt the absorption. Within an hour, their blood glucose soars, providing a temporary burst of alertness. But this is quickly followed by a crash that leaves them feeling mentally fatigued and irritable by mid-morning. The individual might interpret this crash as a need for more caffeine or food, unaware that the initial healthy choice set off a hormonal chain reaction that disrupts their cognitive stability for the rest of the day. It is important to recognize that the biological context determines the toxicity or benefit of these foods, meaning that high glycemic fruits are not inherently evil, but rather context-dependent. If a person has just completed a rigorous resistance training session or a long endurance activity, their muscles act as a sponge for glucose, absorbing the sugar from a banana or mango rapidly to replenish glycogen stores without spiking insulin to dangerous levels. In this specific post-exercise window, the very fruit that might cause inflammation during a sedentary morning becomes a tool for recovery and muscle adaptation. The danger lies in the mismatch between the energy density of the fruit and the immediate physical demand placed on the body. The psychological component of this dietary trap often stems from the dopamine reward system, which is evolutionarily wired to seek out sweet, energy-dense foods for survival. Huberman emphasizes that the modern food environment provides these sugars in abundance, hijacking the brain's reward pathways and making it difficult to moderate intake. When the brain is constantly flooded with dopamine from sweet fruits, it can downregulate dopamine receptors, leading to a subtle decrease in motivation and drive over time. This creates a cycle where the individual craves more sugar to feel normal, perpetuating the metabolic dysfunction that erodes cognitive health. Furthermore, the impact of fructose, the primary sugar in fruit, must be understood distinctly from glucose, as it is metabolized almost exclusively by the liver. When the liver is overwhelmed by fructose from sources like cherries or grapes, it converts the excess directly into liver fat and uric acid. High levels of uric acid are associated with high blood pressure and can inhibit the production of nitric oxide, a molecule essential for maintaining flexible blood vessels and ensuring adequate blood flow to the brain. Thus, the heavy consumption of fructose-rich fruits can indirectly choke off the oxygen supply to neural tissues by stiffening the vascular system. The shift toward a brain-protective diet requires a reevaluation of what constitutes a treat versus a nutritional staple, moving away from high-sugar profiles toward more metabolically neutral options. A person navigating their 60s must prioritize metabolic flexibility, ensuring that their dietary choices support rather than hinder the intricate signaling pathways of the brain. By moderating the intake of high glycemic fruits and timing them strictly around physical activity, one preserves the sensitivity of insulin receptors and maintains a hospitable environment for neuronal health. What daily habit am I defending that actually drains my mental energy? The neuroprotective power of dark pigments in contrast to the sugar-laden varieties. Specific fruits act as potent allies in the quest for cognitive longevity, primarily through their rich concentration of anthocyanins and other polyphenol. Huberman highlights berries, specifically blueberries, blackberries, and raspberries, as the premier cognitive superfoods due to their ability to combat oxidative stress and inflammation within the brain. These dark pigments are not merely cosmetic. They are bioactive compounds that can cross the blood-brain barrier and accumulate in regions of the brain associated with learning and memory. Once present, they act as scavengers for free radicals, the unstable molecules that damage cells and DNA as a natural byproduct of aging and metabolic activity. The mechanism by which these berries operate involves the upregulation of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF, a protein that supports the survival of existing neurons and encourages the growth of new synapses. Regular consumption of blueberries, for instance, has been shown to improve communication between brain cells and enhance plasticity, the brain's ability to adapt and rewire itself in response to new information. This is particularly crucial for individuals over 60, as plasticity typically declines with age, but can be maintained or even improved through targeted nutritional interventions. The astringent taste of these dark berries is a sensory marker of their low sugar content and high antioxidant capacity, signaling a chemical profile that favors repair over inflammation. A deeper look at the vascular benefits reveals that the compounds found in dark berries improve endothelial function, which controls the relaxation and contraction of blood vessels. Better blood flow means more oxygen and nutrients reach the brain, facilitating the removal of metabolic waste products that can accumulate and lead to neurodegenerative conditions. Huberman frequently discusses the importance of the brain's glymphatic system, which clears out toxins during sleep, and the vascular support provided by anthocyanins aids this nightly cleansing process. This creates a virtuous cycle where better daytime nutrition leads to more efficient restorative processes at night. It is entirely understandable that a person might initially find the transition from sweet, tropical fruits to tartar, less sugary berries to be less satisfying to the palate. The shift requires a recalibration of taste buds that have been desensitized by years of high-sugar exposure. Yet this adjustment period is a necessary investment in long-term neurological function. An applied scenario for integrating these protective fruits involves a deliberate restructuring of the grocery shopping routine to prioritize color and skin density. A shopper might bypass the aisle of bright yellow bananas and instead fill their cart with bags of frozen wild blueberries or fresh blackberries, understanding that the smaller, darker fruits pack a denser nutritional punch. By adding a handful of these berries to a bowl of Greek yogurt or a small serving of oatmeal, they provide a steady release of energy without the insulin spike, allowing for sustained mental clarity throughout the morning. This simple substitution acts as a daily signal to the body to prioritize maintenance and repair. However, a critical distinction must be made regarding the form in which these fruits are consumed, as juicing them removes the structural matrix that slows absorption. Drinking a glass of blueberry juice, even if it is 100% natural, strips away the fiber that regulates the entry of sugar into the bloodstream, turning a protective food into a potential metabolic liability. The physical act of chewing the fruit releases the polyphenol gradually and stimulates saliva production, which is the first step in proper digestion. Therefore, the protective benefits are inextricably linked to the consumption of the whole fruit, skin, and seeds included. The research surrounding these dark pigmented fruits also points to their role in mitigating the effects of age-related signaling disruptions. As the brain ages, the signaling pathways that clear out senescent or zombie cells can become less efficient, leading to tissue clutter that hampers performance. The compounds in blackberries and pomegranates have been observed to stimulate mitophagy, the process by which cells recycle their defective mitochondria to maintain efficient energy production. This cellular housekeeping is vital for preventing the energetic slump that often characterizes the aging brain. Ultimately, the inclusion of these neuroprotective fruits is a strategy of compounding gains, where consistent, moderate consumption yields significant results over months and years. It is not about a single miracle meal, but about the chronic exposure of neural tissue to an environment rich in repair molecules and low in inflammatory triggers. By anchoring the diet in these dark, fibrous options, the individual builds a biological buffer against the natural wear and tear of aging, preserving the sharpness of their mind. How can I add more protective complexity to my routine today? The concentration trap of dried fruits, a significant danger to metabolic and cognitive health, lurks in the consumption of dried fruits, which many people mistakenly categorize as a healthy snack due to their natural origin. Andrew Huberman warns that the dehydration process concentrates the sugar content of fruits like dates, raisins, and dried apricots to levels that mimic candy bars, stripping away the water volume that typically signals satiety. When the water is removed, the caloric density skyrockets, allowing a person to consume a massive amount of fructose in a matter of minutes without feeling physically full. This bypasses the stomach's stretch receptors, which normally send a stop-eating signal to the brain via the vagus nerve, leading to effortless overconsumption. The liver bears the brunt of this fructose overload, as it is the primary organ responsible for metabolizing this specific type of sugar. Unlike glucose, which can be utilized by every cell in the body for energy, fructose must be processed by the liver, where it promotes lipogenesis or fat creation when consumed in excess. This rapid influx of substrates can lead to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease and systemic insulin resistance, conditions that are intimately linked to cognitive decline. The metabolic chaos created by a handful of dried dates creates a systemic environment of inflammation that eventually breaches the brain's defenses, impairing the function of glial cells that support neuronal health. In the context of longevity, the preservation of insulin sensitivity is paramount, and dried fruits act as a potent disruptor of this delicate balance. The sticky texture of dried fruit also adheres to teeth, promoting oral bacteria growth that can enter the bloodstream and contribute to systemic inflammation, a known risk factor for Alzheimer's and dementia. The connection between oral health and brain health is often overlooked, yet the inflammatory load from periodontal issues, exacerbated by sticky sugars, adds another layer of stress to the aging system. Consider the common scenario of a person preparing a trail mix for a hike or a long drive, believing they're choosing a high-energy, nutritious option. They might combine raisins, dried cranberries, and dates with nuts, assuming the healthy fats will offset the sugar. However, the sheer volume of sugar in the dried fruit overwhelms the metabolic system, leading to a spike in energy followed by a profound drop that manifests as drowsiness behind the wheel or fatigue on the trail. The individual consumes hundreds of calories of sugar without the satiating bulk of fresh fruit, confusing the body's hunger signals and disrupting the hormonal regulation of appetite for the rest of the day. While it is true that endurance athletes may utilize dried fruit for rapid glycogen replenishment during extreme physical exertion, this application does not translate to the average person's daily life. For someone operating in a sedentary or moderately active context, the dense energy packet of a dried fig or apricot provides fuel that the body cannot immediately burn, forcing it into storage and triggering the inflammatory cascades previously discussed. The context of consumption is everything. What serves a marathon runner at mile 20 becomes a metabolic poison for an office worker at their desk. Huberman also points out the role of ghrelin and leptin, the hunger and satiety hormones, in this dynamic. Whole fruits with their water content intact suppress ghrelin effectively, turning off hunger. Dried fruits fail to trigger this suppression to the same degree, leaving the hunger switch stuck in the on position even after significant caloric intake. This hormonal mismatch keeps the individual in a state of constant foraging, looking for more stimulation and food, which pulls mental energy away from deep work or focus. One might pause to consider that convenience often comes at the cost of biological integrity. The removal of water from fruit is a processing step that fundamentally alters its interaction with human physiology, turning a seasonal resource into a hyperpalatable sugar bomb. Recognizing this trap allows the individual to reclaim control over their metabolic signaling. Where do I trade my long-term clarity for short-term convenience? The lipid advantage and protocol synthesis, the final category of fruits that serves as a cornerstone for brain health, comprises the lipid-rich varieties, specifically avocados and olives, which offer a completely different macronutrient profile than their sweet counterparts. Huberman emphasizes that the brain is largely composed of fat, and the integrity of the myelin sheath, the insulating layer around nerves that ensures rapid signal transmission, depends heavily on the availability of healthy dietary fats. Avocados are rich in monounsaturated fats, which support the structural maintenance of brain cells and help to lower blood pressure, thereby reducing the risk of cognitive impairment associated with hypertension. These fruits provide the raw materials necessary for the constant repair and regeneration of neural membranes. From a mechanistic standpoint, the oleic acid found in olives and avocados plays a critical role in reducing inflammation and improving the fluidity of cell membranes. Flexible membranes are essential for the efficient transmission of neurotransmitters and the reception of signals between neurons. Furthermore, these high-fat fruits contain lutein, a carotenoid that accumulates in the brain and has been linked to preserved executive function and processing speed in older adults. Unlike sugary fruits that spike insulin, avocados and olives provide a slow, sustained burn of energy that keeps hunger hormones stable and mental focus sharp for extended periods. To synthesize a protocol for the individual over 60, the strategy involves a deliberate pivot away from the fruit salad approach and toward a targeted selection of functional plants. This means eliminating or severely restricting high glycemic loads from grapes, mangoes, and dried fruits, and replacing them with a consistent intake of dark berries and lipid-rich fruits. A practical application of this would be a lunch that includes a salad with sliced avocado and a dressing made from olive oil, followed by a small serving of blueberries for dessert. This combination ensures high satiety, low insulin impact, and a massive delivery of neuroprotective compounds. This nutritional approach resolves the conflict between the desire for natural foods and the need for metabolic control. By understanding that natural does not always mean metabolically safe, the individual can navigate the produce section with a discerning eye, choosing foods that serve their specific biological reality. The promise of maintaining cognitive vitality into the 7th, 8th, and 9th decades relies on this ability to regulate the internal chemical environment through precise dietary inputs. It is crucial to integrate this dietary strategy with other pillars of neurobiology, such as sleep and light exposure, as nutrition does not exist in a vacuum. The anti-inflammatory effects of an avocado or the antioxidant power of a blackberry are amplified when the body is well rested and aligned with its circadian rhythm. Huberman suggests that viewing food as a collection of molecular information allows one to program the body for longevity, treating every meal as an opportunity to send a signal of safety and repair to the brain. Ultimately, the goal is to cultivate a brain that is robust, agile, and resistant to the noise of aging. By favoring fats and pigments over sugars and density, the individual constructs a biological defense system that protects the seat of their consciousness. This is not merely about living longer, but about living with the full capacity of one's faculties, ensuring that the later years are defined by engagement, memory, and presence. What is the one dietary change I can make right now to honor my future self?